Good evening, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Allan Terhune with North Sales here in Annapolis, and I'd like to welcome you to the first of what we hope is many MC Scow webinar debriefs. We are very excited about having the first one here after the first big regatta of the year. Let me figure out how to advance here. Sorry for my technical difficulties right from the get-go, but tonight we have two great guests with us tonight. First one is a coworker of mine who recently moved to Lake Minnetonka, and he's a star world champion, getting ready to start sailing scows a lot. Eric Doyle. Eric, are you with us?
I'm here. Good to see you, Al. You guys hear me
Good to see
okay?
you too. And we have our guest speaker of the night, a longtime friend of North Sales and an excellent, top-notch world champion, one design sailor. Probably the nicest guy I know on the circuit as well, which makes it really hard when Matt's so good at sailing and he's so nice. But the current MC Scow Masters champion, Matt Fisher. Matt, are you with us?
Yes, great. Thanks for having me tonight.
Thanks, Matt. We really appreciate it, and we're looking forward to picking your brain about the event. And before we dive into it, I want to go forward and just do what we do with all our One Design classes when we have these webinars. And we encourage everyone to join the class, and all of our One Design classes, including the MC Scow, thrive on membership. So if you're out there and you love sailing MC Scows and you want to support, make sure that you're a class member. The classes need it, especially now when sailing isn't as active as it could be, and they really could use it. So make sure you join the class. The website's up there. They'll appreciate it, and everybody will. So let's dive in here. The chat room will be open in a little bit for you guys to ask questions. And but first, we're going to here's a beautiful photo of one of the starts at the Masters Regatta in Clear Lake. And Matt, I mean, just talk to us a little bit. How was it to be at an event, a championship level event that we haven't had really all year during, the current situation?
Yeah, we really had a lot of fun. This was the first regatta we went to since the Midwinters, and our MC Midwinters was just one race down in Lake Eustis, and then that was when all the COVID issues hit. And we had this particular regatta, the Masters, was originally scheduled for June and got moved to September. And the Nationals, which were supposed to be in Lake Geneva, were canceled. Those were supposed to be in August. So we were excited to go out there. I think that we wanted to get out. We love Columbus, Ohio, but we wanted to get out of here for a week, and we made the trip. But I just want to have a big call out to the regatta organizers. Mark Tizar and Stu Otolgi were the regatta chairman, and they really set the right tone. The burden for making these regattas run in this time really rests on the shoulders of the people running the regattas. I mean, understandably, the yacht clubs are reluctant to have a couple hundred people crawling around their club for a week that they're from out of town. So it takes a lot of work for all of us to convince the regatta organizers and the yacht clubs that we can do this safely. And I didn't have it in writing, and I haven't talked to Mark about it, but at the skippers meeting, Mark and Stu both put out a very good 1 or 2 minute talk about setting the tone for the regatta. That basically, again, I don't remember the exact words, but they said we're going to be safe and respect how others handle this pandemic, and err on the side of caution. And in my ears, that just made my wife and I feel very safe. So thanks to the MC class leadership, and thanks to the regatta organizers at Clear Lake. And I just feel like we need Lisa Klein put a great protocol in Scuttlebutt in the middle of the summer on how they ran the Colonial Cup. And I think we really need to keep looking at those types of templates so that we can run regattas, because this is not a political statement, but I think we're going to be doing this for a while.
Yeah, and I think what's cool, even you just see in this photo, is everyone had been kind of on the sideline for a while, right? And you look, and everyone's right up on the line. They're sailing hard, and it looked like it was, from afar, it looked like it was a really fun event, a competitive event. You guys had challenging conditions, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the Nationals are there next June. Is that?
Yes. It's a beautiful lake. It's probably, I'm guessing 3x3. It blows more than it doesn't, but it's a lot of fun little town too.
Cool. So you and I were chatting a little bit about the regatta, and the first day it was lighter air. You guys, I guess, had a really good day. The first day it was light. Second 2 days it was windier. You sailed with Lisa, which is fantastic. We'll get into that in a minute. But, you know, you and I know each other from sailing other classes. You know, Eric sailed a ton of other classes as well. And one of the things that we always talk about is moding, right? What makes the boat go? And MC Scow, from my limited sailing of them, is tricky, right? It has a lot of different modes, whether you're footing, pointing, heel angles. So, you know, bring us through a little bit this regatta, how you approach that and how you worked on it and how you got there, basically.
Yeah, you know, I'll start out just by saying I sailed more this summer than any summer since college sailing. And I mean that very sincerely. It was all at Hoover Sailing Club and just northeast of Columbus, Ohio. And 90% of my time, maybe 95% of my time was in MC and a little bit in laser and a little bit crewing for my son. So we sailed quite a bit. And we also have a very tough fleet. And, you know, I'm in the fleet standings. I'm probably in third or fourth right now, and I'm going to miss the next couple of weekends. So I'll hear about that. But it is great to go out and really have tough races every single Wednesday night, every single Sunday. And I will say this summer, it was also very light. And I've always found the MC very challenging in light air for changing gears. So being against a tough fleet, getting my head bashed in the first part of the summer was kind of tough, but it allowed me to make some changes that I'll talk about in a minute. But I also spent a lot of time one-on-one sailing with Ted Keller, who's a good friend, good coach, and he has worked with me for the last 5 years and really brought me up to his speed. He's one of the top 2 or 3 guys in the class. He's a great teacher, and I think it goes back to really, you know, changing gears in an MC is just so much different than any class I've ever had, but it's something that to find your lane and to know when you can point, to know when you can drive off is key. So I'll just go through two different things and then stop me if I'm rambling too far. But halfway through the summer, I just was frustrated enough that I readjusted my tune. It was a light air summer. I made it probably a little bit looser than what I had at the midwinters and the train wreck earlier this year. And I made sure that the mast was in the right rake setting. And I also just worked a lot more on my boat handling in the light air. When in an MC, or maybe in any scow, and Eric can tell me this, is when you get a puff and a lift, you need to make a decision on whether or not you're going to take the puff forward, and the boat accelerates so much quicker than any boat that I'm used to. You make the decision on whether or not you're going to go forward or then actually take the lift up. And Ted actually taught me how to do a little bit of both, because I think if you go back and you listen to the scow sailors will initially say, take the puff and go fast because the boat's going to accelerate so much. And, you know, we learned how to actually do a little bit of both, where when you get a puff, actually let the boat heel a little bit, it'll come up maybe 4 or 5 degrees with the puff and accelerate at the same time. But the key is also on a scow, on an MC scow, is maintaining a constant angle of heel. The picture on the left is probably blowing maybe just under 15, I'd say, and we're as flat as you'd ever want to be in a scow going upwind and that stuff. And most of the time in the medium and light air, you'd be a little bit more heel than that. But again, I think I need to kind of get into some of the light air issues. I talked about a puff, but what Ted also taught me was in a lull. And that's where an MC gets a little bit tricky as far as the adjustments that you make. Obviously, you need to maybe make a little bit of lean in with your body. You need to ease the main, just, you know, not 5 inches, but maybe 1.5 inches or 2, and steer the boat so that you can actually keep your momentum going forward. So I spent a lot of time in light air this past summer and really learned how to sail a boat. So. You know, I will tell funny stories that halfway through the summer, I was telling my brother Greg and Skip D-Ball that I was getting my head bashed, and they said, well, that's really good, you know, that you're not winning every race. So I'm going to take that to heart, that was good.
So Matt, you mentioned a little bit about the tuning. So I have, you know, some questions. Bob had sent us a question via the email when he was looking, you know, sending questions in. You know, tell us about the tune. I mean, you said what is the proper take and what spreader angle are you looking at? And, you know, the tuning guide is a little open-ended. It says hand tight. I mean, how do you measure what hand tight is and do all these things? I mean,
Yeah,
pretty straightforward, right? I mean, you measure to the back of the boat, but the spreader angle and hand tight seems pretty open-ended. So how do you?
the spreader angle is in the tuning guide, and I follow it very, very closely. I mean, different sail makers have different spreader widths as far as how far back the spreader would be swept, if that's the right terminology. And I follow the tuning guide exactly. And but I would say that I'm used to boats that you use a loose gauge to try to tension the rig. And I went much looser than that. Even tight on an MC, the loose gauge is not going to register. But I don't know how to, on the video right now, to say loose, but I mean, you're probably wiggling your forestay for light air conditions, maybe 4 to 5 inches, that much play. Now, what I will say that I go off of the tuning guide on, and I got this advice from my brother, and it worked because we had, the first day was probably 1 mile an hour or less to 5. Well, maybe the first race started blowing about 8, but the wind died through the day. I had the rig loose. I had the rake at 28.3, and the spreaders, like I say, are something that I don't adjust. I did crank down that night. We knew that the breeze was going to come in on Saturday and Sunday. I cranked the forestay down almost 3/4 of an inch, which is a lot of turns. And knowing that I didn't need to worry about the rake or the helm because I'd have plenty of bang on. So that is probably one spot where I went off of the tuning guide, was I did crank on the forestay, so I made sure I had a tight rig.
Gotcha. Going back to your motoring question here a little bit, and we're going to go to the next photo here. I'll figure out how to do it. Downwind, right? And this photo is one that kind of, if you're an outsider from the MC Scow, it's kind of a funny looking photo, right? Because you have half the fleet heeling to leeward, half the fleet heeling to windward. Everyone's sailing at different angles. So, I guess 2 questions. One, tell me your approach on how you learned how to do this, right? I mean, MC is not the first boat you've sailed, and kind of then your thought process in deciding which one to do and how you figured this out.
Well, a couple rules of thumb. I mean, one thing for sure is you never want the boat to be flat in these conditions. And I would say this is probably the first downwind leg of the first race. Again, it's blown maybe 8. So that's, you have to have heel. I will just say this, and I need to stay on the low side probably longer than some of the folks do, and the helm might feel like it's tugging pretty hard, but I am able to feel like that's where I can dive down. You're trying to go same speed and lower than everybody, or faster and lower, but I'm trying to go lower than the people in front of me for sure. And one thing that I have that is not popular in the Scow class is I use a masthead fly. And that in these types of conditions and lighter, I'm really able to help my angles, know when I can heat it up, and when I have a puff to be able to drive it down, and how far down I can go because of the masthead fly. I can't tell on my telltales that are just 4 feet above the water. So that's not something everybody in the Scow class does, but that's definitely something that I couldn't live without. I think that as far as heeling to weather, I'm looking, good friend, Vince Drayson is 27, and he's flat. I think you just got to be able, if you're going to heel it to weather, and there's a time somewhere between when it's blowing 8 and blowing 11.25, that it's good to start heeling it to weather with your vang relatively loose, and that's very fast. But you got to be able to heel it to weather, and Vince and I are about the same size. You really need to have enough weight and enough wind to be able to get the boat coming your way a little bit, so you get the leeward chine, the leeward side of the boat out of the water a little bit. But there is this wind velocity in about 8 to 10 that you can start heeling to weather, and that's faster, and you can drive it a little bit lower. And obviously you pull the leeward board up and put the weather board down just a little bit. And I also think one quick thing is a lot of people carry too much board down, especially in the light conditions. And MC, if you just sit in the parking lot sometime and let your board go down 3 inches, you'd be amazed at how much plate you have in the water.
Yeah, I'm a little interested on that, being predominantly sailing keel boats, you know, that if you could talk a little bit about the boards. Do you ever adjust the angles in any extreme conditions upwind, man?
You know, I really don't. I would say I have tried to tug it up a little bit, but I have not, you know, I'm sure there's people who've sailed the boats quite a bit and they might tug it up a couple inches, but I have not adjusted the boards. I've thought about it, but I've never felt comfortable doing it.
Always leave them all the way down in the
Yeah.
light stuff.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And then there was a question in the chat room from someone, you briefly touched on it when you start heeling the boat to weather, about easing the vang, you know,
Yeah.
and if, you know, it's a lot like other boats, whereas, you know, the
Yeah,
main comes in, you know, if you're heeling to weather, the main's in a little bit, then the vang is off and twisted. And is it the same when it gets windy and you're sailing deeper, then the sheet goes out more, you start tightening the vang more, and that just helps control the boat and gives you more
that's a
power?
good question. I mean, you know, it would take another half hour to try to describe how best to sail these boats when it's blowing, I'll say 18 to 20 up to the class limits dead downwind. They're a handful. You know, everybody thinks a laser is tough dead downwind. An MC is tougher. So, you know, it's just similar though to a loose vang is going to be fast, but it's going to be a little bit trickier to sail on a dead down course, and you really got to watch the bow. But that when you're going dead downwind in a breeze, you definitely want to be heeling the boat to weather quite a bit, so that it'll help you steer down if your bow starts to plow a little bit. And so we did not. Well, we had breeze and we had waves, but for some reason, I guess my wife and I have learned how to steer the boat downwind to not plow in the conditions we had at Clear Lake. So, but if you go down to Lake Eustis for some of the regattas down there, it seems like we're going to get some breeze that will create waves that make it tough to sail the boat dead downwind. But yeah, heel it to weather. The more control you have, it's good. It's fast to have a loose vang, you know, not crazy loose like the boom way up in the air, but just enough so that that top, you know, the shroud is going to keep the boom in. So you want to let the vang off enough so that the top batten's basically perpendicular to the wind as it's coming dead downwind.
Excellent.
Still on that thread, another question just popped up. And we talk about comparing the boat to a laser downwind, very similar. And the question was, do you spend much time sailing by the lead downwind in the breeze? Or is it just you rock it down hard on a wave and then reverse the flow and then bring it back up?
Similar to a laser, it actually stabilizes a little bit when you go by the lead. But I am going to be, I'm not pulling a card right here, but going dead downwind when it's blowing 20 to 25, I will say that of all the points of sail mastering, that is not one that I would be able to sit here and give a 20-minute seminar on. I'm still, I don't want to use inappropriate language, but I will call it the wimp mode. Well, I will put on a little bit of vang, the boat will stabilize, and we'll do just fine, and we go pretty fast upwind. So yeah, I need to work on that more. And Ted and I talked about that. We wanted to get our boats on a wider lake, and our Hoover Reservoir is very narrow, very flat wave. When it's blowing 20, you'll get maybe 1.5 inch wave. And we have a bigger reservoir next door, but we just never got the conditions. But we want to practice in those types of conditions so we can go downwind quick.
Got it. Well, we were very fortunate, and I'm going to pause the video here for 1 second, that your brother, Greg, was coaching Jamie from White Bear Lake a couple weeks ago prior to the Masters Regatta, and he got us a couple videos here. And I think it really is good to show how you trim going upwind. And we get a lot of questions about Z-Max trim and things like that. So we're going to play this first video here. Greg's following in the coach boat. Jamie's going upwind, and it looks really good. So a couple things that after you maybe talk through as we're watching here, things you see or pointers that you think are important for people to pay attention to.
Yeah, I would just say that Jamie really is doing a good job steering and sailing the boat. I can't tell on my screen how much he's moving the tiller, but it really looks like he's smoothly sailing the boat. I actually initially thought that maybe he could put a little bit of vang on as he hikes out a little bit, just to help depower so that you can keep the bow down rather than feathering up. But you know, because right at that point, it looks like the top part of the sail might be kicking off a little bit for where the boom is. So I would be putting on a little bit of vang, but that's just, again, trying to be critical, because I actually think the boat looks good right there. So.
Yeah, so my thing from watching this that I was impressed by, at least early on in the video, and I'll actually start it again from the beginning here, was it seems like a very constant angle of heel he keeps, which from my sailing experience of the boat is critical, right? And you can see that it doesn't look like it's over trimmed. So the boat is in its natural place where it's not trying to round up in the puffs. It's always accelerating, which is what it kind of looks like here in the video. Is that a...
Yeah, I think that I've never heard Buddy give a talk on this, but if you hear Andy, Eric, Ted, they're going to start every seminar with saying a constant angle of heel. And if you just look at Jamie's mast, you know, that he has a constant angle of heel. He's hiking out a little bit. You know, you know, right there, again, it gets a little bit flat, but that is what, that's what makes you go fast. That's what makes you point. That's what makes you be able to go through lulls and puffs effectively. So I want to point out one thing that Ted and I also worked on, and I could not tell from the video, you know, but everybody who's on the call would know this, but the boards are pinched in, are a little bit pigeon-toed. So having both boards down is very slow. And one of the things that Ted and I worked on is just to pull that new lure board, the current weather board, down at the very, very, very last minute. And I, you know, I have a relatively new boat, so I don't have to pull it down as much as I did my old boat, but not allowing those two boards to be down in the water for a long time while you're tacking is fast. And so you come over to the new tack, and getting that board up on the weather side keeps you from kind of snow plowing, if you want to put it that way.
So one of the questions we got prior to this, Matt, and you mentioned a little bit here, was, you know, how do you accelerate? And then, you know, people who have a pointing problem, what should be their first thing that they start looking at? Both of these questions came in. So
yeah,
if you could pick up on that, that would be.
I'm going to tell a quick story, and if I'm going too long, wave or something, but
We'll go to the next video while you're doing it.
Okay. On Saturday night of the regatta, you know, there was not, from our perspective, that we didn't do a lot of socializing. And I was looking through the videos that were taken of the Saturday's racing, where it's blown about 13, 15, something like that. And one of the videos I jumped in, and it was 2 minutes into the video, and there were like 10 boats going upwind, separated by 5 boat lengths each. And I was saying, why would they post a video on the regatta webpage on you know, just boats practicing before the start? But it actually was 2 minutes after the start of the fourth race. And I was shocked at how quickly the second row was flushed out of the picture. And I was shocked at how far apart the boats were. So it was kind of survival of the fittest. And you know, we ended up getting 8th in that race, but we were one of the second row boats that had to tack out of there. So the next day, it really just, you know, because it's a plate, and all scows would have you know, a plate board rather than a foil. It is incredibly important to be able to drive the boat bow down in a breeze after a start. So that on the 5th race, we actually, you know, we held way back. Our bow was on about the shroud of the boat above us. We held everybody up. We didn't trim in. It was like a laser start. We didn't trim in until maybe 8 seconds before the start. But we had a 4 or 5 boat length, literally 4 or 5 boat length hole, and we were near the weather end, and it was weather favored. So we were able to drive into that and actually steer the lane that we wanted to steer. And rather than trying to fight, you know, somebody looked like they're coming up in front of you, we were able to drive off. So it is so important in any boat, but in these boats in particular, to be able to get speed, bow down, and drive into your hole. And we were lucky to make the hole that we did in the last race. But I'm just trying to say that I was just, when I coach kids or coach anybody, I'm always saying how, you know, that second row was flushed out pretty quick. But the video I saw of the 4th race was shocking. I don't know if it's still on the webpage, but it is, if you watch it start, it's a drone shot also. So I just think you need to have maybe you pinch up a little bit from the first 5 or 10 seconds so you ensure that you have a hole. But this boat in a breeze needs to have a little bit of capability going bow down so you can you can steer what you need to steer through the waves.
Got it. I'm going to go to the next photo here. We have a bunch of questions, and I kind of wanted to bring all this up here. So first question was, I'm actually going to direct this to Eric. We got from Bob, and this is a photo of all the boats lined up here. But his question was, when do I actually need to buy a new sail, and how do I determine that? So for those of you guys who don't know, I mean, Eric is one of the top guys in the business when it comes to developing and working on and really advancing sails and one designs. And I think we're really fortunate that he's going to be involved, full bore with sales for all the boats. So Eric, if you could touch on that, I think it's a really good question.
Yeah, I mean, we sell 2 sails, and we'll continue to sell, the very popular one is a Z Max, which I understand, Matt, you use the whole time. You like it a lot. You use it in all the conditions. And then we have the Zap, which is a little bit more geared toward heavy air, and it's made out of a little bit heavier cloth. It's a 3/8 PK, which is a pretty popular cloth that we use in a lot of classes: Flying Scots, Stars, Thistles, Lightning. With that being said, they are all cross-cut sails, and as we know, a little bit radial is in vogue in a lot of classes, full radial sails. So the sails are quite highly loaded in the head. We often see sails like this get deeper in the head much quickly because there's a lot of load, and it's not perfectly aligned on the yarn angles. So as the sail gets deeper, we struggle to trim it in more. Very light air or very heavy air, the cheap more, we'll get the wrinkles out of the clue that have come up. That's another highly loaded area. We start to see fatigue near the inboard end of the batten pockets, and the cloth starts to break down. When it's nice breeze, 8 to 12 or even 18, the sail's probably as fast as it's ever going to be, on day one. And we're going to start to load it. The more we do in the breeze, the more we're loading the sail, and it's slowly going to get slower and slower. I don't know exactly if I can quantify it by how many days. People ask me that all the time. Oh, how long do I get out of how much time do I get out of my sails? How many races or years? And I'd say, well, think about, the tires on your car. How many miles do you get out of those? Well, it depends how hard you drive them. How, if you're good to them, or if you take corners real hard, if you use your sail on the breeze a lot, it's going to wear out a lot quicker. That's just the way it is. But mostly the biggest problem is they get deeper in the head. They get a little more finicky, a little harder to trim, especially when it's very, very light, or when it's windy. It's just harder to hold the boat down. It won't open up as much when you bang hard, and you'll struggle in the breeze. So very typical for a Dacron crosscut sail.
So Matt, a couple other questions we got, and one of them is focusing on crew weight. And I don't know how much you weigh. I'm guessing I don't even want to guess.
180.
Right, 180. What is a typical crew weight range? What are people doing single-handed? How do you decide when to bring a crew on? If you could touch on that a little bit, I think it's important for a lot of guys who are out there.
Yeah, and I love this part of the class. It's, I think the logistics or sometimes can be tough, but the MC, and I think most scouts allow you to add a crew based on the conditions, and it's not something you need to sign up for ahead of time. Yeah, I mean, you don't need to choose which races your crew's going to be in, and we love it. I'm able to sail with my wife. I did a blue chip once with one of the juniors from Spring Lake, and I think it makes it fun for our family. My daughter sailed with me before, so. But it's definitely something that you need to practice with, because so the right weight is an incredibly wide range. I mean, when you put on a crew, and the range can be anywhere from 270 pounds to 330. And I mean that very sincerely, that you can be that heavy. It's just obviously different time when that crew comes on board. But you need to practice with a crew one-on-one. And we had such a light air summer. My wife and I only got out twice. But the boat feels different. Sometimes you can be steering so low that you almost feel like you're planing upwind. I might be exaggerating a little bit, but the boat feels like an entirely different way to sail it upwind. And you really need to figure out where your line is going to be. And, a good friend of mine, Ron Barwitz, has actually went for a long time sailing single-handed, and he started putting a crew on a couple 3 years ago. And, his words were, it almost felt like he was cheating. It makes the boat so lively upwind. But I think that Ron also has told me that, you can probably put the crew on it at 8 to 10. I always felt like I had to wait till cows were blowing across the street before my wife would get on the boat. But we as long as it's a time of day where you feel like the breeze is going to build rather than die, she gets on when it's, I'll say 10 to 12 in that range. But you definitely have to practice it. You definitely have to be careful of over trimming, because you still might be pointing, I'll say 3 degrees, 4 degrees lower than some of the single-handed folks that might be below you at the start. So, but it's a fun part of the class to be able to add a crew. At the Masters, I will say, most people added crew, which actually was good. I don't bring crew on to truly have an advantage. It's just something that feel like, we had to have. And it seemed like a lot of the folks brought on crew, and it makes the lanes easier to stay in.
Got it. So one more question on the weight. So Hannah just sent a question over. She's saying she's 130 pounds. When should she add a 190-pound crew? So do it in the reverse. If you're really small, when should you add a crew?
Yeah, I think that goes back to what Ron Barwitz said. I think that if you're 130 pounds, and I hope, we continue to be able to have all shapes and sizes of folks in the class. I think you're obviously going to need, when you start getting overpowered, you need to bring your crew on. And if they're 190, that's perfectly fine. There's going to be this range where they might just be, not hiking flat out when it's between 8 and 10. And, these numbers are all based on how big the waves are too. But you might need a crew 3 mile an hour earlier than I do. But you're going to be lucky because you have a 190-pounder hiking when it's blowing 12, and you're going to be having a lot of fun. And I think that I think that what you need to practice with is the trade-off between Vang and Traveler. I actually used to think that the main looked a lot better when I had crew on, and I would put the Traveler down and crank in the main. It looked right. But Ted has kind of taught me more and more to keep the Traveler in the middle and really be careful on how much main sheet you put on. The Vang can help you depower, but I've actually found that I can over trim the main when I have my wife on the boat. And I think that that's something that I need to continue to work on. But again, it's all a matter of time in the boat and practicing against another boat by doing it. But I think that 130-pounder, it's just a matter, if I put a crew on when it's blowing between 10 and 12, you'd be putting it on when it's 7 to 9. And, and I don't need to take a wind indicator or a Velocitech out with you to figure that out. You just, go out when you feel like you're overpowered. When you start dumping the main consistently, you want to get your crew on.
And some of it too, Matt, correct me if I'm wrong. I mean, if you're 130 pounds as a driver, it's hard when it's light to actually heel the boat over enough. Is that?
Absolutely. And downwind and upwind. We right. Find that we have a couple big guys in our fleet, and in light air, they're able to heel the boat more than I can. I got to really hike it out to get the weather side out of the boat. So yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it was funny. I went sailing maybe 2 weeks ago in New Jersey with a bunch of buddies, and my friend Jarrett was sailing, and he's like 155 pounds, and watching him go downwind, trying to heel the boat to windward, it was kind of funny because he was hiking harder downwind than he was going upwind, and it was pretty funny to watch, really.
Yeah.
So one other question that we got is the Z-Max versus the Zap and where they fit in, and Matt, kind of why you choose to use the Z-Max. So I'll jump in. The Z-Max kind of came after the Zap sail, which was the all-purpose sail where people thought they wanted a fuller sail with more power, and that's where the Z-Max came in. And we still offer the Zap to everyone. It's a good light team or heavy air sail, and I think a lot of people still use it for that. But it seems like, and Matt can correct me if I'm wrong, but the Z-Max is kind of the go-to sail. It's powerful. It's able to go across the range pretty well. Is that a fair?
Yeah, I have never used any other sail, but I think that, it definitely has a wide range. I think all the sails have a pretty wide range right now, but yeah, and like I said, the tuning adjustments I made that might not be in the tuning guide are the forestay, and then that allows me to maybe make some other adjustments with the vang and main sheet trim. But yeah, I again, I just want to try to connect with everybody that's listening to say that I'm still toying with how to exactly trim the main when it's blown between 15 and 18. I haven't figured it out yet. I look forward to spending more time in the boat to figure that out, but I think there's something with how we bend the mast, whether it's bending it to weather or whether it's making sure that we're appropriately trimming the traveler or the vang. I'm still playing with that, so I don't have it figured out, but we're working on it.
Got it. We'll unless we have any other questions that are out there, we're going to kind of go to the next little bit here and kind of remind everyone a couple of things, and Eric can jump in here too, is that our fall deal ends. And one of the things that, we wanted to talk about with everyone is just, with all the news of the changes that have happened, and just kind of reinforce that, we are selling the Z-Max and the Zap to everybody, and that they're staying with us. And Eric and I are looking forward to supporting everyone with that, and letting everyone know that the sales are staying the same. And, Eric, I don't know if you want to chime in here if I'm missing part of it, but, that's what's happening with the North program, just to end any rumor or certain questions people are having about it. Is that fair?
Yeah, that's fair. I think we all, kind of got together and consulted with a lot of people, and everybody's pretty happy with the sales. Not that we're going to sit on our hands. We've had these designs for quite a while, and we're going to get into the boats a bit and understand them a little more thoroughly than we do at the moment, and look for, ways to go forward from here for sure. That's what we all really enjoy doing, and we're going to keep these sales. Have been successful for years, and we're not going to give up on that, but we're also not going to sit on our hands and not think that there's some better ways to go fast. For sure. And we're really excited about it. And, for everyone who's out there, both my and Eric's contacts on here. Matt, we can't thank you enough for the time that you gave us tonight. I think your insights are really, really useful. Everyone is glad to have you in the fleet. And I think it's really awesome that someone of your caliber who races in the fleet is willing to share their tips and secrets and be open about it. I think it makes the sport more fun. And I think people get more out of it when the top guys are sharing. And I hope you agree. Obviously you do.
I just want to do a shout out to the class, because the culture of the MC class is exactly what you just said. The class truly has strong fleets. I brag about Hoover getting 10 or 15 boats out on the line, but their fleets in Wisconsin and Michigan are getting 25 to 30 boats on the lines. And there's just this eagerness to help people, help the new sailors, make adjustments on how they can go faster in the boat. So I've really enjoyed it, and the class is very strong right now.
Yeah, I mean, I know I'm excited to get. I'm going to hopefully meet a lot of people down at the train wreck here in November, and I've done some sailing with my friends in New Jersey. And it's pretty exciting to see what's happening there. There's almost 40 some odd boats, I think, in the fleet in New Jersey. It's growing quick, and you're right. The excitement is pretty large. It's pretty cool to see. So
yeah, they have it's the Florida Southeast Championship. So it's actually the Southeast Championships. I think it's what's called mid-November. The train wreck is the last weekend in January, first weekend February, and then the midwinters is the second week of March.
Got it. So, but the next event is in November, right? It's
at Lake Houston.
Southeast Regionals, is that what you said?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry, had it confused already. But
no, it's all good.
One last question before we wrap up here. Someone, Isabel, just asked about weight fore and aft. How do you handle that?
That's actually a very good question. I'm going to answer it in two parts. I'm always having my forward leg against the traveler. And that's especially downwind in light air. I would make sure that I'm not getting too far back in the boat and dragging the transom. It's a long boat, but if you move it, I'm not, a couple guys in our fleet straddle the traveler. I don't do that, but I'm very conscious of the fore and aft weight, and I do make sure that I stay close to the traveler. But I got to point out too that I'm stating the obvious, and I'm not trying to, maybe I'm insulting my own intelligence, but when you get a crew on, you don't need to be shoving yourself against the traveler as much, because you just put 115 or 120 pounds 3 feet in front of you. And so you want to keep your weight together, but actually get that crew to come back towards you a little bit. And downwind, you got to get the crew actually back of the traveler, heeling the boat to weather. And so maybe I'm answering more than what you asked, but it's actually,
No.
I think fore and aft weight is very key. Keep it forward, and the lighter stuff for sure. Once you get a crew on, you got to realize how much weight you have forward of the traveler, and downwind. If you keep the crew forward, you're going to plow. You'll figure it out real quick.
Are there any indicators, again, I'm not trying to belabor this, but like if the stern wake looking funny or anything that you kind of look at and you're like, oh, I got to move, or it's just the way the boat feels? Or
I'm not like a expert on the gurgling noises that'll be made in the back when you're too far back, but I definitely know when I hear that we're sitting too far back. So sometimes if my wife comes back and we're really surging, but then we get a lull, we got to hustle a little bit and move everybody back forward and crank the boat up a little bit maybe. But I don't have any gauges, but you can definitely tell when you're dragging the transom.
Well, thank you. And again, thank you for spending the time with us. We hope that
Thank you. I hope everybody
continue to keep sailing and winning regatta so we can have you on, but hopefully we get some others on as well. And I know Eric and I and everyone here at North Sails are thrilled that we got this webinar off and going, and we're looking forward to doing a ton more and meeting everyone on the circuit, and we really appreciate it. So thanks to everyone, and we hope to see you guys in a few weeks. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Learned a bunch.
All righty.
See you guys.
You.